about what that might mean to them and what approaches that they're following to actually improve that performance.
If I could just go on the tangent there, Mark. Since we're talking about sales strategy in this first of the 4 segments, for those of you that came in late, you mentioned the word gap. Could you, it seems like that's really the strategy that I hear you talking about, that's what we're coaching folks here, is to be aiming toward this, to identify the sales gap. Is that correct?
Exactly. So, the gap is it exists in almost every single situation with the customer. I mean, every type of company has a performance that they want to see an increase out of their employees, their dealer network, their customers, even their staff that they're bringing on for temporary services. And they're trying to increase a performance. And so that gap is something that we're always looking to close. And again, so hopefully it's clear that the gap is usually between desired state and future state. And the incentive itself can help make that gap tighten up a little bit.
Okay, so you're going to find your way into one of your existing clients. And many of your clients are going to have a program already, or some of them won't have an existing sales incentive program. So Brant, what's the difference in selling into a customer, adding on if they have an existing program, or maybe stealing that away from a competitor, versus how you start from the very beginning?
They're really 2 different skill sets and 2 different sets of questions. And working with a direct sales team, as I'd imagine all of you have, Linda included in your folks, what I found is you can work in theory about what you should be asking, but until we really sat in a room and we mapped it out and we put down specific questions based on different scenarios we would be confronted with, that's what really equipped the sales team to be confident about what to ask. So if we go in and we find out they're on track 1, this is the cheat sheet we're going to bring out. And if we go in and we find out they're on track 2, this is the cheat sheet we're going to bring out. Because if they're on track 1, meaning we found out they've never done anything, they totally need to be coached through this. This is a total build out. It's kind of like building a new house versus moving into a house that's already built, and that's track 2. Hey, we've got a program, we've been doing it for a few years, but we don't really think it works, or the supplier we're working with lets us down all the time. So different set of questions that you're going to embark upon to open them up to find out where there's an avenue you may be able to help them.
Let me say something about that. If you're sitting here and if you've never sold an incentive program before, this might really sound scary. So I'm going to say to you is think of yourself as a person who just does a lot of listening and a lot of asking questions. And all you really need to do at this point is just to uncover an opportunity. If you can uncover the opportunity, somebody like Certif-A-Gift, and there's other people out there too. My preference is obviously these guys, but and they didn't pay me for that. Is call them and say, I have an opportunity. One of my customers, they have a service award program, and this actually happened. They have a service award program. They're not happy with it, and and then they'll say, okay, and we'll sit down and we'll set up those questions to ask. And there's things that you'll need to know, you'll need to find out. But if you've never done it before, hey, it's not a problem because you've got a team of experts with you. And so don't be afraid of it. It's not that tricky. It's just having a thought process through. And if you just find the opportunity, if the opportunity presents itself, there's people that can guide you through this and walk alongside of you, to get the answers. So don't ever miss an opportunity because they do it every day. It might be strange or different to you, but they do it every day. So if it's a loyalty program, if it's a safety program, whatever it is.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, going back to that point about missing opportunities, if as Brant said, that sometimes you run into those situations where they have an existing program in place, and oftentimes the customer's not happy with it, the vendor's not performing, the performance of the program isn't there, and if they're not considering you as a resource to be a go-to person for, they're not going to come to you and talk to you about it. It's kind of like if you don't go to your dentist and ask them about your knee, right? But if your dentist all of a sudden specialized in knee repair, he or she would be telling you about that and making sure you're aware of that their new specialized area. So it's critical that you establish yourself up front as that resource, because the opportunities are going to be brand new opportunities and the ones that exist that they're just not happy with the vendor and they're looking for an alternative source.
So, coach the newbies here. Where do you start? From a strategy standpoint, do you start with looking at your customers of which ones already have an existing incentive program, or is it better to outreach to those who don't?
Well, being that you don't know where they're at, I would probably say you start with all of them and you start to look at your existing client base and understand what they may be doing out there. So I guess that would be my response would be just because if you don't know what they have, I don't know how you would actually choose that.
Okay. And Mark, we'll stick with you then. What kind of services are required to compete for those incentive programs? What do you need in your arsenal of tools in order to effectively compete?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that's pretty much for certain. Almost every end user is looking for a one-stop shop. They don't want to have 13 different vendors. They want to have a single vendor, a person that they can go to. And so if you're establishing yourself as that one-stop shop, you know, they could be coming to you for their promotional needs, but also their incentive needs, because as we say a lot of times, that incentive programs are oftentimes mislabeled because they're really incentive marketing campaigns, because they have a promotional component to it, an administrative component, a communication component, and all of those provide opportunities to sell in some of the other services that you provide. And so I think that establishing yourself as that one-stop shop is critical. The other thing to do is to make sure that you have the resources behind you when you get into the selling situation. Because my pal here, Linda, and I, we've collaborated for over 17 years, and when she uncovers the incentive opportunity, see, she's the feet on the street. She's out there with the eyes and ears, talking with the end users. That's not my job. My job is when she comes back to me and says, "Hey, Mark, I've got this situation. How would you approach it?" And I will tell you that didn't start by accident. It started off with her kind of doing a vetting process of the different vendors in the industry, establishing a relationship with me, and saying that she could know that she has confidence in myself and my sales support team to be able to answer her and be able to help her in a response to a proposal, to just brainstorming a discovery session with a client, which a discovery would be something like sitting down and going through the fact findings about the opportunity, to ultimately the reward fulfillment. And so, whatever vendor you choose, you need to go through that process and make sure you're aligned with someone that when you have that opportunity, you can turn to that expert, because you don't learn this thing overnight. You actually learn vicariously through the program opportunities that you sell. And there's been many cooperative selling opportunities that we've gone in together, and Linda has kind of been almost like I do play-by-play and she does commentary.
Right. It really works well, and don't feel that you're restricted to a certain area. I mean, we've really through webinars, through go to meetings, we've been able to talk to people in different states. It really doesn't matter, and just have that full conversation. So, and then Mark or Brant or whoever's right in the room there with you, so to speak. And, it makes it an interesting exchange when two people are talking and asking the questions, and then nothing gets missed. And when you do this, then you become a more skilled person too, because you start to understand the proper questioning techniques. So you start to get, more secure and learn more about what you can do.
Well, let me make a segue between what Mark said and you just said there, Linda. And that is, it seems that it's likely that since promotional products become a component of many incentive programs, the audience today actually is probably participating in some way in an incentive program and may not be aware of it. So what I'd like you to help the audience understand is, how did you go about positioning yourself as a credible, viable resource when you started to get involved in incentive programs and making that step into promotional and incentive, from promotional into incentive programs, and how you build that credibility with your customers?
Okay, so to restate that then, It's how can we best position ourselves as a viable incentive provider when our existing customers know us as a promotional products vendor.